Hear your favorite NFL legends sharing their stories and insights every week right here on Thursday Night Tailgate with Chris Mascaro and Bob Lazari. Take it away, guys.
Once the door is locked, there's no way out.
And now back with us on Thursday Night Tailgate is the Dean of Atlanta Sports Talk Radio and a member of our 2017 Guest Hall of Fame, Beau Bock. Beau is absolutely one of our favorites here on the show. Bob and I always enjoy any time we get to spend with Beau. He has been the Dean of Atlanta Sports Talk Radio going all the way back to 1973. And like we always say, no one knows more about what goes on in Atlanta sports than Beau does. His insights and knowledge are second to none in this town, and we're excited he is back with us again tonight here on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, Beau, Chris, and Bob, thanks for coming back on the show.
Hi, Beau.
Hey, guys, I appreciate it. Bobby, Chris, good to talk with you.
You too,
same. So, Beau, we got a couple of local teams looking good and one not so much. So we'll want to end on a positive note. So let's start talking about the Falcons. And boy, I really thought they would quote unquote rise up this season and certainly last week against the Colts, but they fell short. Your thoughts? Matt Ryan leads the league right now with 6 picks. How do you feel about what you're seeing so far from the Falcons?
Well, it's terrible. But, I disagree with you. I mean, I could see this coming. We've seen it coming since 2017. In 16, we went to the Super Bowl, beat the heck out of the Patriots, lose the game, come back next year as the favorite to to go to the Super Bowl, and we come back and we're in the tank. First of all, what Dan Quinn did, and Dan Quinn is, he's got his goatee. He thinks he's this maestro type of guy, He's calling the team our Commonwealth Brotherhood. Our Brotherhood. And the guys are looking at him saying, "What, are you kidding me? What are you talking about brotherhood? You don't know brotherhood. You grow, in the suburbs of New Jersey, for crying out loud. He's talking about brotherhood." But they just didn't have any energy in 2017. And what he did, guys, is instead of starting new in 2017, he thought he could pick it up right from the Super Bowl. And that's the mistake a head coach can't make. That was a fatal mistake. We didn't even look like the same football team in terms of energy and intensity. And then last year, it was worse than that. Now this year, I mean, the cat's out of the bag. And you see our guys. We may be the softest team in the league. We don't hit anybody. We don't gang tackle. We don't run and chase. We've got, here's the Falcons for you. On our coaching staff, we have 4 ex-head coaches. Think about that. In the front office, we have 5 ex-general managers. So who's in charge? No one's in charge, and it looks like it. No one says, this is what we are. This is who we are. This is what we look like. This is what we're going to do. Nobody does that. And when you don't have that on the team, you don't have a team. You just have guys coming out playing an exhibition. They don't know it. They think they're doing great. But unless a coach challenges his players, then they won't do it. They will only give you what is demanded.
So is this a Dan Quinn problem? Is this a front office problem? Where do you think it lies?
Dan Quinn, totally. We've had some pretty good personnel. In fact, right now, I love our personnel. Okay, the front office is doing their job. Dan Quinn is just not a head coach. He's got 0 leadership ability, and that doesn't work. You've got to have, everybody can X and O, but there's only a few guys who can lead. And if you have that, and it's an innate ability which can be developed, but not developed from nothing, it has to germinate, it has to be there somewhere, and then you become a leader. Dan's just not a leader. He subscribes to everybody, everything. That's why we've got 4 assistant head coaches on his staff. Check us out this Sunday against Tennessee. Just look at the intensity and try to feel the energy. And when you switch stations and look at other teams, you'll see that we are softer. We are as fast, but we're not as intense. And we just don't try to out-physical anybody. And it's a physical game. If you don't win that, there's only one finesse team who ever went to the Super Bowl, and that's the Chuck Knox Rams.
Bo, to that point, looking at Dan Quinn, do you think he's got the faith of the front office, or do you think he's on a hot seat?
No, I don't, because Arthur falls in love with his guys, and it just it's very difficult. That's why we had Mike Smith for 8 years. And Mike Smith's teams made Quinn's teams look like they were from outer space. You know what I mean? We were dead. And it took 8 years. It took 8 years to get rid of Mike Smith. So, Arthur just has no breeding whatsoever in competitive athletics. Or, he has no street sense. Just because he's a billionaire is great. I've never met a billionaire, by the way, who didn't know everything. You can't tell Arthur anything. He's arrogant. And he surrounds himself with arrogant guys. Guys walking around the office with little whales on their belt. So it's a different crowd.
Bob, questions for Bo?
Hey, Bo, it's always a pleasure. I'm going to stay on the Falcons a little bit, Aaron. I think you're exactly right, Bo. The front office has pretty much done their job, especially offensively. The
right.
weapons they have, Jones and Ridley and Hooper and Freeman and Matt Ryan. I mean, this is a team offensively that can go to a Super Bowl. There's no question about it.
Exactly, Bobby.
But my question, I guess I'm wondering, is the window shrinking a little bit? I know they locked up Julio, but Matt Ryan now 34 years old. Bo, what do you get? What sense do you get of how long he might play and how long he can really perform at a great level?
Well, I think he's going to be here and at a great level for about another 3 years, maybe more. Mm-hmm. But I love Matt because wherever the ball is supposed to go, that's where he puts it. And he's going through an interception thing right now, but it's his third offensive coordinator in 6 months or whatever. And I'm kidding, but he's thrown a couple. But everybody throws a couple. I remember Favre, for crying out loud, when they were rebuilding and they were going through, he was throwing interceptions like crazy. You got to throw interceptions if you're going to challenge down the field. And when you challenge down the field with a new system, there's just some nuances that don't allow the play to be successful.
I'll switch over to baseball for a minute because they're doing well down there, Bo. I mean, we talked last year, and you were high on Snitker as a manager, and they're going to come close to 100 wins. Now, there's talent on this team also, but I don't know if it's 100-win talent. He has done an amazing job, and very quietly, I think this guy is maybe one of the top 6 managers in Major League Baseball. Now, talk more about him.
Yeah, he probably is, Bobby, without a doubt. He's very subdued, but you can tell he has. For instance, yesterday, nobody knows this. In fact, in our town, we have no sports media, which makes it very difficult for teams to get better or to kind of take a look at themselves and see what they're doing. But yesterday, he pulled Acuna in the second inning. Yeah. And everybody's going, everybody's he's got a sore elbow, he's got this. No, he didn't hustle after a ball again. And a guy hit a bingo right in front of him, a soft bingo. He takes second because Acuna just, hobbled after it. And so he yanked him. That's beautiful managing. That's where you get guys' attention. That's where this is the Braves way. This is how we go about that. He's been exceptional.
Bo, staying on the Braves. I mean, this is a team that made it to the postseason last year, got out, exited in the first round. Now, you got the Dodgers sort of looming on the horizon. I mean, everyone still has to win their division round before we get to the NLCS. But is this a team that's built that could go into an NLCS and get their way into a World Series, or do they still have some maturing to do?
Yeah, they do need some maturing, but I think this team is so aggressive and so volatile offensively that they can carry themselves even though they really need some maturing. The thing that's going to hold us back is inconsistent starting pitching. That's been a real problem for us. And in fact, yesterday you thought Julio was just kind of rolling into shape and be able to throw an excellent game. And he was just terrible. And I love the guy. He's great. Gives you everything he's got, but it just, he tops out at 91. And, that's just very rarely. And if he doesn't hit his spots, it's bombs away. And that's basically our pitching stuff. Then we got Soroka. He's a rookie. You got Max Fried. He's a rookie. So, we got Keuchel. He'll probably lead off. He'll probably be number one in the rotation leading off. And then we got Fultonevich, who is, like one pitch away from one flew over the cuckoo's nest. You know what I mean? If an ump misses a call on him, it's forget about it. Just pull him out of the game because he's psycho. He implodes.
So to that end, Beau, I mean, this, how far they go, we'll see. But I sort of liken these guys. Yeah, I mean, but I liken these guys to where the Falcons were a few years ago, and this is something you talked to us a few years ago. When the Falcons got to the Super Bowl that year, it wasn't even supposed to be their year. They were supposed to be next year, right? They were supposed to be growing and developing. And I feel like the same thing happens with the Braves. Is there any chance you think that these guys they follow the same path as the Falcons, that we get all excited and then we fall flat on our face?
I don't think so. I don't think so because this Alex Anthopoulos seems to be pretty good. He seems to really have a finger, a pulse on the situation. He's coming up with some great players, great replacements, great depth, and he's kind of like assumed control down there in the way of baseball operation, where for years and years it was Schuholz and a whole bunch of clowns. But Anthopoulos seems to know what he's doing, and he this year, wherever we come out, we will be favorites next year. We'll be dynamic. I mean, think of this team has no holes.
So, Beau, you might have caught when we were talking to Bill Madlock before you joined us.
I heard him. It sounded great.
Yeah, no, he's fantastic. Bob made a lot of really good points. When you look at Major League Baseball now, it's a swing hard and hope the ball gets in the way, right? 9 times out of 10, 8.5 times out of 10, I'm going to strike out, and then 1.5 times I'm going to hit a home run, and that's what baseball is now.
Yeah,
you enjoy the game now, or did you like it better back in the day?
No, I loved it back in the day. And in fact, now, when there's a situation, I just pine for it. I cry for it. I ache for it. Put somebody in motion. And Snit does that much more than Bobby Cox ever did. So he does that, but still, we're not known as a running team or a team that's going to take the extra base or that type of thing. It's going to take a lot more, but yeah, that's the game I enjoy, is the game where you're manufacturing runs and then your bopper comes up and gives you a gift.
Yeah, I mean, what happened to the hit and run or the run and hit and, stealing a base? Where did that go? When did that become unfashionable?
I don't know. You know, if I think if I ever saw a suicide squeeze, I'd die. I'd succumb right there.
Bob, a friend of Bob and I, our friend Angelo Kane, he and I were talking about, remember the Cardinals, back in the 80s with the small ball and everybody running, and they manufactured runs left and right. They didn't really have a bopper on that team, but they still won a World Series because you had to pay attention all the time, all the pressure that they put on the defense because of the team speed and stuff. But not nowadays. It's a home run or sit down. And I think that's doing more disservice to the game. I mean, chicks dig the long ball, but it's a boring game now. There's no excitement to the game.
Hey guys, remember just back then, I'm going to use this is with primetime, Deion Sanders in a Braves uniform. You put Deion Sanders on first base and all hell breaks loose. The pitcher could not keep his composure. And no one ever whatsoever could keep their composure with him on first base. That was a team that really could have run. But, probably thinks mine is only for catching a bus.
Right. And Bob, you remember, you go back to the days with the A's or the Yankees or even people don't remember, but Ricky Henderson played for the Red Sox too. You put that guy on base, it didn't matter first or second, right? Because Ricky was running. It didn't matter.
Yeah. No, he was going to be on third.
Yeah, absolutely. Beau, I want to switch gears and go back to football a little bit, talk about the Georgia Bulldogs. Everyone getting excited around here for what we're seeing from Georgia. Big win over Notre Dame last Saturday. They got 3 games left with ranked teams. You got Florida still on the horizon, Auburn, Texas A&M. How your thoughts on the Bulldogs?
We got Tennessee. We're off this week with Tennessee next week. And that's going to be difficult because they're top 5 in tailgating, and the band, bless their heart, plays their heart out.
Yeah, I wonder what the point spread on that Tennessee game is going to be.
That could be 75.
Right.
But it's such a pleasure to be around Kirby. He does it right, and you can see Saban all over him, man. And he's tough, and he's fair, and he just energizes the entire region. It was beautiful. And I had a chance yesterday because I hadn't met him yet because I hadn't been down to Georgia Tech for 14 years. Like when they gave up football, I did too. So I went down yesterday to meet Jeff Collins. What a great guy. You talk about a dynamic guy. You talk about a guy that people gravitate to as a magnetic personality. And I'm not talking about personality. I'm just talking about demeanor, just the way he talks. And, Georgia Tech is going to be back sooner than we thought it might. It could take 20 years after what that guy did. It'd be like the death penalty to SMU, which is really what it was, except it was self-imposed. But now Jeff Collins, we're going to – one of the things I loved about Atlanta when I moved here in 1973 was we had 4 pro franchises and 2 major NCAA institutions. That, and they've never really lived up to it, to what they could be, to their potential. Now with Kirby and with Jeff Collins, it's any bar the door. This is going to be football heaven around here.
Beau, any concern? My one concern about the Bulldogs and Kirby Smart, and I love Kirby's enthusiasm, and I'm sure he's a great recruiter because he just seems like a really great guy.
Right.
My concern about him is I think sometimes he gets so excited and so caught up in the game. Well, in a big game, right? We've seen the fake punts not work. We've seen some questionable calls towards the end of games that have cost Georgia in some of the big games that they've played over the last couple of years. I'm not sure that he thinks clearly when it comes down to the wire. Any concern about that for you?
No, not really, because he's, don't forget, he's a third-year head coach. I mean, he's still learning the nuances. He's still developing his intuition, for those situations with the team and, their mindset at any particular time. I have no problem with him calling those plays. In fact, I admire it for the same reason we were talking about baseball. Baseball just becoming lethargic. I love guys pushing the buttons. And I like the fact that Kirby's not afraid to push the button.
Do you, as I look ahead and we all look ahead to what could be, right? I sort of feel the same scenario that we saw with Georgia and Alabama from a few years ago. These two teams, and again, Auburn, very good. LSU, very good. Who knows what happens, because they could come up and beat Alabama and the whole scenario changes.
Right.
But if Georgia and Alabama run the table and they face each other again in an SEC championship, regardless of who wins that game, right? If it's close, right? A one-loss Alabama or a one-loss Georgia team, do you think they both should get into the playoff because they're that much better than a Pac-12 team? They're that much better than anybody else in the Big Ten. They're that much better than anybody else in the ACC, not named Clemson. Is that is that where they, do both of those teams belong in the top four?
Yeah, to me they do, because we're not being fair here. We're trying to get the four best teams in the country.
Right.
So, I would resent it, with nothing involved other than these are the two best teams. You're leaving one of them out. I would resent it as an onlooker, as a fan, as just an analyst of the NCAA and their process and how they go about it. It would be wrong. It would be, in terms of competition, sinful to do something like that. Yeah, I think they both belong.
Bob, questions more for Beau?
Yeah, just one more NFL question, Beau. I hate to beat a dead horse, but I want to get your whole take on this Antonio Brown thing. You've been covering sports for years and years. Have you ever seen a more talented athlete with such huge problems, Beau? It's sad in a way, it's criminal in a way. We can go back and forth, but it's fascinating in a way. But to me, it's a tragedy in so many ways. What's your opinion about this whole thing?
Yeah, you're right, Bobby. It's a tragedy. What else could it be? This guy is supremely gifted, and just like, does he not have a mentor? Did he not go to New England and feel as though he could gravitate toward Bill Belichick, and in terms of advice he could give him? He should have felt comfortable there. He may need medication. He may need to go see Dr. Bill.
Maybe Chris, you can add more.
Mentally, he needs to be evened out.
Yeah, and Chris, you can chime in, because this is what I was thinking. This is a guy. It's not about football anymore, Chris. You know that. It's more about him. We just want him not to hurt himself or someone else at this point. That's how pathetic it's gotten. And I think there needs to be intervention. I don't know how it's going to happen with his kind of personality, but again, it's so sad in so many ways, for victims, for himself, for the teams. I don't know if I've ever seen a story quite like it.
But when you were saying that, I was thinking, the NFL under Roger has become so detached from the average player, from the average fan. They're it's almost as if they're collecting billionaires to own these teams and to have this little club of theirs. It has nothing to do with the game. It really doesn't. Everybody's got stars in their eyes. Everybody's making so much money, on Park Avenue at the offices, that it's become different. It's not like a football team and let's go get the Packers on Sunday. That's not what it's about anymore.
To that point, Beau, we were talking about this earlier on with Victor Green, but you look at the wide receivers, it seem to be the ones that, are the biggest divas, and Antonio Brown, and we Odell Beckham Jr. with his $200,000 watch that he feels like he has to wear, playing in the game. And now we see with Jalen Ramsey trying to force his way out of Jacksonville. What's your thought on these guys trying to force their way on and off teams, as opposed to requesting maybe a trade in the off season, but we saw Minkah Fitzpatrick do it, right? He's his way off the Dolphins to the Steelers. And what's your thought on that?
Well, that was kind of like what I'm talking about. It's another instance of the league getting soft. You can't do that because no one's ever been allowed to do that. And if you did that, the National Football League would be a mess with guys going back and forth and all over the place. No, there's no discipline. There's no stringent way to put guys in place. You should just forget about that. If you're in Jacksonville, you're in Jacksonville. That's it. I would love to be, in New York if you like the bright lights, or I'd like to be where I like to go. But heck, I'm at Jacksonville. And, that's the way the system works. And I'm conservative that way. I don't want that to change. Billionaires bidding for players, it'll be ridiculous.
Well, I want to get one more for you, going back all the way back to the Falcons. And you talk about guys with big dollars. And a few years ago, Devontae Freeman signed a pretty big deal for running backs back then. It's certainly escalated since then. But missed most of last season with injuries, but really hasn't been the same. I mean, I was surprised. I was looking over his game logs, and he's only had 2 100-yard rushing games going all the way back to mid-December of 2016. Your thoughts on Freeman?
Well, I love him. He's still fresh. I don't think they're using him where he can develop a rhythm in any game. We have to have him to be successful. And I think don't forget, like we said, third offensive coordinator in 3 years. Last year was Sarkisian. He's just not a running back guy. He wanted to play, that spread formation passing game. So I think, Devontae Freeman is going to be excellent down the stretch. If we are, every week when we come out, I'm looking to see first thing in the first quarter is if we've quit yet. We're on a very slim precipice here. Where any week now it could be over, where there's no doubt it's over.
And Beau, you talked about this a little bit tonight, but you've certainly given us this in the past, right? You look at Atlanta sports. I mean, there's certainly no dominant sports talk radio stations anymore. I mean, AM radio is almost dead. Terrestrial radio is almost dead anyway. Sirius XM is Facebook Live. Talk about the things that you're doing and what happened. What happened in Atlanta?
Well, it did big media. Big media took over all the radio stations, and local radio lost its unique personality for its specific market. There just is no more local radio. This has always been a strange market in that you had the dominant newspaper, which is only one newspaper, owning the dominant radio and TV station, and that's not allowed. There's only about 6 stations or 6 entities in the country that can do that, and they did it for national security. You cannot dominate the media in any market like that, but Atlanta's different. And I think the newspaper, Cox Media, has fallen down on the job totally. They've just taken the money and run and do nothing for the community. It's a shame.
Well, let our listeners know about your newsletter, about your Facebook Live show, and how they can stay up to date with all the great things you do.
If you go to BeauBockSports.com, you can leave your email address there, and we'll put you on the list for the daily commentary. And then we're just trying to get in the podcast business now, and it's very difficult for me because I don't even know what some of the words mean in this internet business. What are you talking about? So it's slow, but once we get on the air, it's pretty good. We'll be on Friday morning on Facebook and Twitter. Friday afternoon at 2:00 on Facebook video, Twitter, and YouTube. So I invite everybody to tune in and leave a comment. Let us know what you think.
Beau, it's always a lot of fun when you're a part of the show. We can't thank you enough for being generous with your time tonight and joining Bob and I again. We certainly look forward to catching up with you again real soon. I hope it's not in the too distant future because you're always so much fun.
No, I appreciate it. You guys are always my favorite, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
We love you
soon. Bye.
Take care, Beau. All the best to you and your family.
Thank you.
That's the great Beau Bock. And Bob, I mean, who makes the segment more fun than getting to hang out with Beau?
Makes me laugh, Chris. But he's passionate about Atlanta sports, and you get it right from the hip. It's great stuff, and we wish him luck with all his endeavors coming up Facebook. You're right. He's the kind of guy, Chris. He doesn't need all the outside stuff. Once he gets on the air, that's the fun stuff with Beau. So podcast aside, Beau, we'll be listening. He's great.
Yes, we will. All right. Bob and I will come back on the other side of this real quick station break. We'll be turning on our spotlight on the positive. So we hear more great stories about guys making an impact out there in their communities. Hang with us.